By my count, this is the 5th time we've seen Dwight in his underwear.
Michael? Cover me! What? Get out of here, moron! Hey!
Excuse me, Mr. Dwight, who are you talking to?
Dwight, are those your pants? That's a Polaroid.
Which are tidy greenies as always. It's also the 3rd episode that Krasinski directed for the series, the 2nd episode featuring a cameo from Josh Groban, the 2nd time Helms was written off the show to allow him to work on a Hangover movie, and the 2nd time Dwight is told not to call a superior anymore.
Please don't use my cell phone ever again.
Oh, this is your... I thought this was your...
Okay, Dwight, gonna ask you to not call me on my cell anymore.
Hey everybody, I'm Chris and I'm reviewing every episode of The Office ever, and today we're looking at The Boat.
Got the memories, don't need the boat. Can't cry about it. What are you gonna do, cry about it? Excuse me.
Let's go.
I understand nothing.
Blah, 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 blah. Greta, the tittle-tattle, prattled on about the little metal bottle. She spat a bit of spittle on the mottled brittle cattle in a bitter battle.
Our cold opening picks up the story seemingly the very next day in the office, or at least the next time the camera crew was at Scranton. And Oscar pulls the dock crew aside to plea with them to keep his secret affair with Angela's husband / state senator a secret. He does this, for some reason, on camera.
I hope that I can count on your sensitivity and discretion.
Bold strategy.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
And Kevin's incidentally around the corner, helping himself to some back alley breakfast Malone cone.
Malone's cones?
Title your sex tape.
And the sheer shock of it all forces Kevin to push his own ice cream over with his thumb.
Yeah, I think this day could get worse.
What does that mean?
Kevin?
And with that, the first act begins. Andy is using company time to deal with his family's financial woes due to his father dipping out on his family after depleting their bank accounts, leaving the family officially broke. Andy's, quote, killing it in this department.
I'm kind of crushing it in the damage control department.
Which may be foreshadowing to his eventual career path, but we have a lot of stupid things to get through between then and now. The real crux of the plot in this episode is that his family's going to have to sell their boat in order to set Ma up for a few years with financial security while they figure out a new normal for all of them. Andy makes the mature decision to sell the ship, knowing full well that this boat seems to signify a rite of passage that he was always blocked from accomplishing by his father.
But Dad wouldn't let me. He said you can't be a skipper until you're a man. You know, I'd reach for the wheel and he'd just smack my hand away.
Meanwhile, and because I don't think there was really anything else the writers could come up with, Pam announces an opportunity to spotlight Dunder Mifflin on a local radio business show.
Iris Black on the radio?
But soon thereafter, a scheduling issue occurs and the interview is canceled, which turns an entire subplot into a very long and elaborate Jim Dwight prank.
He's gonna be disappointed.
We could not let that happen.
Which I love. And with that, our 3 lines are out there in the water. The radio interview, Andy Aaron in the boat, which is a great band name, and the plot line, will Kevin spill the beans?
What does a bean mean?
Let's break them down one at a time. First, Andy, convinced by Aaron, decides to take the old SS Bernard. Actually, what is the name of the boat? The boat's name is Aspire 2.
That's a metaphor!
While at the boat, though, Andy's rite of passage is refused once again by this guy.
Damn it, screw you, Dad! Ah.
This character actually ranks pretty high in some people's most hated characters of The Office. And he's played by Andrew Santino, who got on my radar a few years ago because of clips from his Bad Friends podcast. Then also a bunch of clips from that Bobby Altoff podcast as well. And could we just take a second to appreciate how weird podcasts are right now? Like, we're living in a world in which podcasts, which are arguably the most low-effort content to create, are so wildly popular, and subsequently, they have become some of the most viral-ish content on social media, to the point that many podcasts are being now produced with a visual-first strategy to capitalize on the success that they have with YouTube Shorts and TikTok. Meaning that the medium has evolved to a weird hybrid of sorts, to the point that people are now producing visual content to make it seem like they're doing a podcast. But it's entirely short, scripted conversations only meant for social media. But what a wild ride podcasts have been on, huh? Kind of reminds me that Gabe had a podcast.
Look at me. I'm the most content person I know. And I live in a tent with a woman made of old soup cans.
Okay. And boom, that is the second webisode reference I've worked into this video. And where is Gabe, by the way? I'm assuming he's like stuck in Tallahassee after the Saber split, but it feels sad that a character like Gabe never got a goodbye.
You are not leaving without giving me a hug. Ugh.
Okay, you know what? You don't need to make that sound.
But don't worry, he'll be back.
Supposed to be, is that
everything.
supposed to be?
I am as smooth as a porpoise for you.
But while Andy and Aaron are picnicking inside a parked boat, that's a metaphor, Andy stumbles upon his drunken brother who's supposed to be on his way to rehab, but instead found himself pissed drunk in the family boat's booze locker. The brothers decide to take the boat to the buyer directly instead of via the hired hand, no matter the cost, ironically enough, and they sail off seemingly unprepared into the sunset, leaving Aaron behind. Back at the office, Kevin struggles to keep his mouth shut about the senator.
And the senator is just pushing back as hard as he can.
Please stop.
What?
Please stop.
And Oscar, fearing a secret getting revealed, goes to Toby to get Kevin fired on a fallacious premise, but reneges at the last minute because Oscar's not 100% a dick.
I don't know that I believe anyone's 100% a dick, man.
And then just because I don't know how to shoehorn this into this video at all, we do get this very good moment with Toby.
I knew it from the beginning this was a possibility.
What are you talking about? I just did this now.
When I was on the jury, the Grand Strike.
Sure.
I always thought he might have been set up, but I felt pressured to convict.
It seems this is all settled until the senator himself arrives.
Oh my God.
Honey.
And the big guy keeps dropping double entendres until it's just too much for Kevin to handle. And we get yet another delightful Kevin moment in this talking head.
I totally forgot about the affair for a minute.
Meanwhile, Jim, Pam, Nellie, and Darryl team up to prank Dwight with this interview thing, which is, if you read it from the prank angle, it's all pretty great. It's light and airy, and it gets funnier as the story progresses. But from Dwight's perspective, it's kind of a dark day. But I do think I can make one of those movie trailer edits I haven't done since like season 4 in here.
For those just joining us, terror in Grenage.
The stock price is plummeting.
I'm gonna need you to let the mailman go.
And welcome back to BizWiz. I'm Iris Black. On the line, we have Dunder Mifflin's senior sales associate, Dwight Schrute.
Okay, I was chosen for this task for a very good reason.
David Wallace is the CEO,
But he's not hands-on.
So the day-to-day operations are entirely under your command?
Entirely is the perfect way to describe it, Iris.
Steve, so Mr. Schrute, what is your response to the Consumer Product Safety Commission that says Dunder Mifflin paper is toxic?
This is slander, Ms. Black.
It's extremely toxic!
Do not listen to her. This employee is obviously disgruntled. What the heck is going on? Are you gonna get control of the message, or do I have to send in someone who understands the meaning? Get out of here!
What are you doing?
The fallout from this morning's revelation continues to mount. Since Mr. Dwight Schrute began speaking, Dunder Mifflin's share prices fell 73%.
Listen, the person responsible for this catastrophe is the CEO and chairman, David Wallace.
Wallace is said to be despondent over the company's stock plummet and has taken a mailman hostage.
This Walls guy is looking at hard time. I know Wallace's phone number. Everyone hold, I'll conference him in.
Walk out of the house.
What?
With your hands on top of your head, everything is going to be fine.
Overall, I'd say my first radio interview went pretty much the way I expected.
But all's well that ends well, right?
Sometimes the ends justify the mean.
Dwight believes that he talked David Wallace off the ledge.
You guys, you heard?
Andy selling into the great unknown, both metaphorically and literally.
To Bermuda.
Bahamas, Andy.
Same thing.
And Oscar's able to sleep safe and sound with the senator and Angela's cat by his side, free of any consequences. Life is great.
Damn it, I'm happy.
With that, let's dive into the deeper meaning.
What does a bean mean?
Someone please explain it to Kevin.
Trust and deception are reoccurring motifs woven throughout this 22-minute episode, comprised of those 3 subplots. Between the deceptive prank on Dwight, the loss of trust Andy's experiencing with his father,
him,
and the fallout therein, and the more complicated nuance that is the accountant drama plotline, The Boat uses a thematic backdrop of lies and breaches of trust to demonstrate the individualistic nature of journeys to self-actualization and the consequences of our actions along the way. And that's because we're all on our own journeys to find peace and purpose and any number of other P words that we can use to fill our days.
PlayStations.
But with 8 billion other people on this planet, journeying the same as us, our stories become intertwined with one another. Family, work, love, or just pure happenstance. This causes complication, complexity, and any number of other C words.
Consternation.
Stories like the snippet that we get in The Boat are a reminder that not everyone is content to just let you live out your journey. And not all journeys also end where you want them to. This one's kind of dark. Each story in this episode has varying levels of nuance between the role of the perpetrator and their victims, which we could call the fool. Dwight is the obvious fool in his story, but his journey ends with praise. And while it's played for laughs, there is something kind of inspiring about him sticking his neck out to save at least what he thought was someone's life.
I'm gonna need you to let the mailman go, okay? Wait.
Angela's the fool in her story, and though she gets a little screen time, it's the dark underbelly of this whole subplot. Oscar, her closest coworker, is carrying out an affair with her husband, something that will absolutely devastate many aspects of her worldview in one fell swoop. But in The Boat, the roles shift a bit, in which Oscar becomes the victim/fool, and Kevin takes the perpetrator role, holding power over Oscar to end all of Oscar's enjoyment of life, just on a whim. And then lastly, Andy starts as the fool, fallen victim to the destruction his father has perpetrated.
Dad, go to hell, I'm taller than you!
And yet, in the process, he slowly starts doing the exact same things as his dad, taking a boat down south to find himself, leaving his lady and his responsibilities behind. And yet, Andy wears both the fool and the perpetrator mask because he doesn't really seem to be aware that he's falling for the exact same snare as his father.
Saying I love you is not the words.
It's too high.
And there's no overarching message here, just sometimes life is weird.
It's not a party at all, it's just sad.
But with that, let's rate this thing.
This is the worst.
So this cold opening doesn't exactly feel like a cold opening, but rather just seems like how the Superfan episodes created a new cold opening out of some of those early season 2 episodes, and I guess season 1, just by taking deleted scenes and shoving them in that pre-theme song sequence. And while that doesn't make for an inherently bad cold opening, it is an odd inclusion here, and it's a weird one if you consider all the cold openings across the series. And what we've come to expect in cold openings, I would consider this ice cream drop pretty low. I give it a 1 out of 5.
Why?
I wouldn't actually be surprised, though, to find out that they had originally planned a completely different opening sequence, but scrapped it due to the sheer amount of plot that they needed to cram into this 22-minute episode. But the writers balanced all this out without making the episode feel jarring or rushed or having one plotline feel blatantly disjointed from the others. And the emotional complexities of Oscar and Andy's rather villainous stories, juxtaposed to the lighthearted, jovial tone of the radio prank, works extraordinarily well, especially so for a late season episode of The Office. Amongst the many highlights of this episode is Jenna Fischer's 10 out of 10 New York accent. The rasp, the sass, the subtle frantic undertones.
Good afternoon, Iris. It's a pleasure.
Is your paper toxic?
No, the paper's not toxic.
Thank you, Sandra!
Unless it's exposed to oxygen. Then it becomes extremely toxic.
But the same goes for this entire prank. The comedy around this bit, the teamwork, and Dwight's gullibility all work together to create a very memorable bit, and maybe one of the most defining moments for the character of Nellie across the entire series. And we have to mention that there is no Jim Pam drama in The Boat, which probably already bumped up its rating. Same for most episodes, though, which center around Andy. The boat suffers a bit as he's basically insufferable throughout. Though in fairness, it kind of works here. Most of this episode works. A lot of laughs to be had, lots of tension, lots of cringe, and in spite of just how much I hate Andy, no matter how many times I watch this episode, I see him leave on that stupid boat, I get this little tinge of hope that maybe this time, he'll come back a better man.
But I dream.
All that to say that this episode ain't half bad, and I will give it a 3 out of 5.
Oh, thanks, everybody.
But that's just what I think about the boat. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Thanks to all the patrons who support this channel. Like and subscribe if you want more content like this in the future, and join me next week when we go from the boat to the whale. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.